I want to say something to you today that I have been thinking about carefully, because I want you to hear it the right way. Not as a warning. Not as something to fear. But as the most freeing thing anyone has ever said to you. The clock is moving. It has always been moving. But at this stage of your life, at this point in your journey, you can feel it in a way you could not feel it at 30 or 40 or even 50. And that feeling, that quiet awareness that time is not unlimited, is not your enemy. It is the most valuable teacher you have ever had. Because it is the only thing in the world that has the power to cut through all the noise, all the distraction, all the postponing, and force you to look at what actually matters. The question is whether you will listen to it. Whether you will let that awareness change how you spend the days that remain. Whether you will finally, after all these years, give yourself permission to live the way you always meant to. That is what today is about. Not fear. Permission. Permission to stop carrying what was never yours to carry. Permission to stop waiting for a moment that is already here. Permission to live the rest of your life as the fullest, richest, most genuinely alive version of yourself that has ever existed. I am Mr. Peter, and I have spent years sitting with people in the final chapters of their lives, listening to what they wish they had done differently and what they are grateful they finally did. And I want to share with you today the 5 things I hear most consistently from people who look back on this season of life with either peace or with pain. Because the difference between those two outcomes is not luck and it is not circumstance. It is a handful of decisions. Decisions you can still make. Starting today. The first thing I want to talk about is the weight most people are carrying into this chapter of their life that was never supposed to come this far. I am talking about regret. Not the passing kind, the brief acknowledgement that a different choice might have led somewhere else. I am talking about the chronic, daily, grinding kind of regret that becomes a lens through which a person sees everything. The kind that colors every morning before the day has even had a chance to begin. I have sat across from enough people in their 70s and 80s to know that regret, when it is carried this long and this far, does not clarify anything. It does not produce wisdom. It produces paralysis. It produces a person who is technically present in the current moment but mentally living somewhere in the past, in a conversation that happened 30 years ago, in a door that closed, in a road that was not taken. And here is what I want you to understand about that past you keep returning to. It is finished. Not in a cold or dismissive way. In a completely literal way. It is done. Nothing you do today, nothing you think about tonight, nothing you replay at 3 in the morning can change a single detail of what already happened. The words that were said were said. The choices that were made were made. The years that passed passed. And every hour you spend in that fixed and unchangeable territory is an hour subtracted from the only territory that is still alive, which is right here, right now, this day, this breath, this conversation, this moment. I think of a man I knew named Arthur, 77 years old, who had spent the better part of 2 decades revisiting a business decision he made at 55 that cost him a significant amount of money and a partnership he valued. Every conversation eventually found its way back to that decision. Every quiet moment was an opportunity for Arthur to reconstruct it, to replay it, to find the exact moment where a different choice would have produced a different outcome. And what Arthur could not see from inside that loop was that the decision itself, as painful as it had been, had cost him far less than the years of mental return trips he had been making to it ever since. The original loss happened once. The regret was happening every single day. What would it mean for you to put down the specific regret you have been carrying? Not to pretend it did not happen. Not to minimize what it cost you. But to simply make the decision that you are done letting it have a seat at the table. That it happened, that it mattered, that you learned from it or did not, and that you are going to stop letting something that is completely finished determine how you feel about something that is completely alive, which is the day in front of you right now. The river does not slow down to mourn the banks it has already passed. It keeps moving forward because moving forward is the only thing a river knows how to do. And a river that stops moving does not become something peaceful. It becomes something stagnant. Something that gradually loses the quality that made it a river in the first place. You are not stagnant. You are still moving. But regret is the thing that slows you down. Put it down. Not for anyone else. For yourself. Because the days you are spending there are days you could be spending here. The second thing I want to talk about is something that should have resolved itself long before this point in your life, and for many people it simply has not. I am talking about the amount of energy you are still spending managing what other people think of you. The careful word choices. The decisions made not from what you genuinely want but from what will generate the least friction. The opinions you keep to yourself because you are not sure how they will land. The life choices, small and large, filtered through the imagined judgments of people who are frankly far too busy with their own concerns to be thinking about yours as much as you assume they are. I want to ask you a genuinely honest question. How many of your years were spent being a